Hello and welcome on this Saturday morning to discuss Scotland versus Ireland. I'm joined by Gavin, Harper and Steph Brawn as usual uh, as we look ahead to today's game, which should be another exciting one. As they all have been really through this tournament. I think it's been a pretty interesting tournament, even if it's not gone exactly as Scotland have imagined. Before we get into it, I'll just remind everyone that you can join up to the website for 6 months for £1, or you can get the 12 months for £1 a month of £12. So click onto the website and subscribe, and you'll get all our great content as usual. But yeah, let's just start about the game. Gav, you're in Dublin. What's the atmosphere sort of like? Is there a lot of Scots about already?
Yeah, loads. Yeah, we were wandering the streets of Dublin round about the Aviva last night, and there was loads of kilts, loads of Scotland tops already. So yeah, it's obviously going to be another weekend of great travelling support, which is no surprise, I suppose. But yeah, no, it was good. Atmosphere was good. Obviously, St Patrick's weekend as well. So town was busy last night, but not too busy. But I imagine that'll change this morning and the rest of the weekend.
Yeah, so we'll just look ahead to the game and then we'll look at the team. Sort of Ben White back in, Stafford McDougall starting. Is this the team that should have started last week in Italy?
The team I thought would play in Italy. Look, yeah, I think probably the Stafford one is a bit of an admission that they didn't get enough go forward. They need his physicality in that midfield, particularly when Ireland will have Bundy Aki and Robbie Henshaw. And then defensively, their back row will be stood next to them, and they're all big men. Caelan Doris, O'Mahony and Josh van der Fleer. So yeah, I think that probably is an admission from Gregor that he's got that wrong. And I also think that some of Scotland's players are in danger of shoehorning themselves into becoming bench specialists.
Yeah.
Sam Skinner has played a bit in the back row, so he's great there. George Horn, that was just it. As well as George has played for Glasgow, that just didn't work last week with Finn. It just got too loose. And now Cam Redpath. I mean, Gregor talked about Cam Redpath being a perfect bench player because he'd made a big impact in the previous games. So yeah, it's an interesting one. And Ben White should have played last week. Nobody should. Scotland aren't good enough to be resting players for Six Nations games. Excuse me. And yeah, he should have played last week, even if he was on the bench and he'd got 25 minutes. I think that would have made a difference at the end of the game. So yeah, it's the team I expected to play last week, and let's see how they go later on.
Steph, that's something you agree with? What do you think of the team?
Yeah, I think it's a bit horses for courses with Stafford McDougall. Like I said, like Gavin said, it's he gives that kind of go for. He's probably more similar to Sione Tuipulotu than Cameron Redpath is. I didn't think Redpath played badly last week. Certainly not in an individual sense. I'm not sure whether there wasn't quite the cohesion between him and Jones that you get with Sione, but I didn't think he was individually bad. So I suppose it's unlucky in that sense. But I think Stafford McDougall deserves his chance. He's been great for Glasgow and has had some man of the match performances while the Six Nations has been on for Glasgow. So I think he absolutely deserves the chance, and I think it makes sense against such a physical side like Ireland. So pleased to see Ben White back. I agree, should have been there last week as well. Slightly surprised to see Rory Sutherland on the bench. A little bit. He's obviously been a bit in the wilderness recently. He's went over to France and played for Oyonnax, and he's been a bit forgotten about despite being a sort of British and Irish lion. So I'm relatively surprised to see him back on the bench. So interested to see how he goes because he was a regular fixture for Scotland for a long time. So but I think I'm happy with the team, but we'll see how they go. I think it's going to be a a tough day at the office, and they'll just really have to be the best they've been for years, I think.
I think a few people maybe a couple of more changes as well. Is that something that you usually go along with, or?
I don't know. I think it's strange that Jamie Ritchie's been like sort of in and out of the team a lot. I think I'm surprised he's not in the team at all this week, because I thought he was quite effective off the bench last week, in terms of he carried well, and I thought he had an effect on the game when not much was happening for us. So I don't know if I expected a lot of changes, to be honest. I do think that you do have to stick by players. You can't just be doing the Tuni Tombola mad every week. So I think it's probably the sort of level that I expected, but I'm a bit surprised that Jamie Ritchie's not in the squad at all.
Yeah, can you just talk about him, Gav? Because obviously started against Wales, out against France, on the bench against England. Is that right? So if I've got that right, and then yeah, it just seems very strange that he's been in and out. It's not really been any sort of chance for him to kind of get a run of games to sort of show what he can do after losing the captaincy. Being kind of in and out. It's like Gregor seemed to speak about him very highly at the start, even though he lost the captaincy, but he just doesn't seem to have had a chance to really have a run at it again.
Yeah, it must be a really odd few weeks for him. He's obviously gone from, as you say, probably coming into this expecting to be captain and naturally then play every game, to he's hardly had a kick. And as Steph said rightly, I think he played pretty well off the bench in Rome, and I thought he made a good impact. And now he's been jettisoned. It's an odd one. It's Edinburgh go to South Africa, and you almost think for somebody like Jamie Ritchie, he's needing to be on that trip because he just needs to play. And it must be. It's an odd one. And the 6-2-5-3 bench thing. Given that Gregor's gone back to the 5-3, you almost are inclined to think, well, why did you bother with that last week? Because you didn't bring Kyle Rowe on, and you've now jettisoned a guy who has been in and out the squad, and goodness only knows what that is doing for his confidence. I mean, by all accounts, as Rory Lawson wrote in one of his columns for us, Jamie's a pretty resilient guy, and he's bounced back kind of every time he's had one of these setbacks. But it's an awful lot of setbacks for somebody in a very short space of time. And I wonder about the kind of rationale behind that. I think it's a strange set of decisions.
Yeah, let's talk about somebody who is there all the time. Xander Ferguson is going to make a bit of history by becoming the most capped prop in Scotland history. He's just so consistent all the time, isn't he? He's just perfect. He's just somebody that you can rely on in that Scotland team every single week.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was really surprised when that stat was flagged, and I was equally as surprised as Gregor was, I think. But given Xander's age, it hadn't occurred to me that he would be, more caps than people like Tom Smith, and today he surpasses Ewan Murray, Alan Jacobson, who was about for years and years in the kind of early 2000s. Yeah, Xander has become, I think I said it in one of my match reports from this tournament, I think Xander and Finn are Scotland's two most valuable players, and for different reasons. Finn obviously for the kind of magic, but Xander because we have nobody else to replace him. When Xander's not there, we unfortunately are now resorting to a guy who's come from the international wilderness, Elliot Miller-Mills, or a guy who's 37-year-old in WP now. So, I just think Xander has become so important, and you actually forget that he's been around for so long, but he's not. He's still a relatively young, it's particularly for a front row. So, goodness only knows what cap total he could reach.
He's only 28. He's just looking at the stats here. He's got, as well as his 67, well, it'll be 67 today, caps for Scotland. He said 19 under 20 caps before that as well, which says it all. And played more than nearly 130 times for Glasgow Warriors. He's just always there. It says a lot about him. In a sport where it's so easy to pick up injuries, especially with big collisions and stuff, it just says a lot about him that he's just always there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm with Gavin. He's all we've got. I think that's why he's important. But I don't say that as in he's all we've got. As in he's average. He's fantastic, and he's such a workhorse for Scotland. And I didn't actually know he was only 28. That's mad. And forwards generally play for longer than backs. So he could be playing for another 9 or 10 years, which is crazy when you think about it. When you think how long he's been playing, it really is.
Yeah, it is absolutely nuts. But like I say, it's just a testament to how he looks after himself every day as well. But yeah,
that's a lot of scrums.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, if we look ahead to the game, though, it makes it seem a bit strange to say, but there's almost given that Ireland eventually put 36 on Scotland under 20s last night, but that first sort of 50-60 minutes where they really frustrated them, it's almost like something that Scotland could take from it today as well, like to try and do the same sort of thing and just try and frustrate Ireland for as long as possible and see where it gets them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the longer it goes today, the longer Scotland can keep Ireland at bay and as you say, frustrate them, the more the players will get nervous because they need to win.
Yeah.
The more the crowd will get nervous. I think that would play massively into Scotland's hands. What they can't afford is a repeat of the World Cup where they started badly and they were basically out of sight at half time. And yeah, Scotland played better in the second half. But the difference at the World Cup, I think, was that Ireland hooked all their main men. Johnny Sexton came off after 50 minutes. They won't make those changes today. If Ireland get a sniff of being 10, 15 points in front, they will put the foot down and they will attempt to just wipe the floor with Scotland because they'll want to put on a show and seal it in style in front of their own fans on St Patrick's weekend. And I don't think that's lost. Last year when Ireland won the Grand Slam here, it was the first time they'd ever won it at home.
Yeah.
And I know that's not lost on when Peter O'Mahony spoke yesterday. He made it a big point of how important that was to the squad and how much the fans can play their part. So Scotland have got to be right on it from the very, very start. And as you say, if they can cause Ireland problems and maybe get in front and just keep the scoreboard ticking over, then who knows? But if they don't, it could be a long afternoon.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point, Steph, as well as that Ireland are also going to be hurt a wee bit. That I think coming into the tournament, everybody kind of, apart from after they beat France, everyone kind of expected them just to win the Grand Slam. It was just like they could turn up and they could win it. So they'll be hurt in a way as well, and they'll want to bounce back from it.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be an interesting game. You've got two teams that are hurting off the back of unexpected defeats. So I'm with Gab. I think Scotland need to just stay in the game because I think that we all know that the skill and the talent they have across the squad, that if they are in the game at 72 minutes, then there's only a score in it. Who knows what could happen? That's anybody's game. Your money would be on Ireland to be clinical enough to see it out in that circumstance, especially at the Aviva. But I just think that's what Scotland have got to do, and just apply that scoreboard pressure and just keep themselves in it. And we've we've got to not see that collapse at the end, in the latter stages of the game as well. If they're in it, then they need to stay in it. If it's no good being in it, like a bit like the under-20s game last night. It's no good being in it for 60 minutes and then completely collapsing. So it would be good to see them stay in the game and be in it for the entire 80 minutes, even if that means defeat at the end. If we can see them stay in the match compared to the performance in the World Cup, that will be just worlds away from what we saw at the World Cup. So, I think if Scotland receive a drubbing today, I think there will be serious questions over the leadership in the squad and also Townsend. That they cannot repeat that performance today in the World Cup. It just has to be, we all expect to not win, I think, but it just can't. They just have to put on a performance. It's just non-negotiable for me.
Yeah, I think that's not the getting beat that would be the problem today. It'll be the manner of it. It'll decide.
It's the manner. Yeah.
How people view Gregor after this. I think I know we spoke about him a lot the other day, but it's kind of, again, I think we have to kind of speak about him again. It's like, what needs to happen, Gav, for fans to stay on side with him? Because I think there is people turning that are starting to consider, has he taken Scotland as far as he can? It's a squad that's pretty good, that should be challenging for the title, but just could now end up finishing fifth.
Yeah, I think that's it. There's almost a part of me that, I would be inclined to go along with what Steph's just said. If we don't win, but we perform and the players stick to the plan, that's a big thing for me. That the players have basically said at some parts of 2 or 3 games now, they haven't stuck to the plan. That's got to be a worry. If you're going away from what your coach is giving you, that to me raises questions. In terms of fans and Gregor, I think there's always been this undercurrent of we're able to have great one-off results and then we don't back them up. And people, I think, are at the stage where that's now not good enough. Obviously, if we win, that takes the pressure off Gregor a fair bit. Can I see that? Probably not. So I think it's about that performance. It's about making sure that they deliver something that looks like how we expect Scotland to play. There being no capitulation and there being no, we've been dragged into playing another way. But I think, from reading some of the comments on our social media site over the last 5 or 6 days, I just wonder if perception has changed. That balance has tilted against Gregor.
Yeah.
And once that's happened, it can be difficult to get back. The one thing I would say is a huge result, for example, a win here, might be just about the only thing that can tilt it in his favour. But who knows? We'll wait and see. But yeah, it's going to take the best performance of the season. Yes, no doubt about that. I think the best performance since Gregor took over. If we're going to win today.
Yeah, there's 2 stats that kind of sum things up this sort of campaign as well. Obviously, the penalty counts that have happened. The 14 in a row against Wales. I think it was 8 in a row against Italy. But then there's this one that I just want to highlight from our stats man, Kevin Miller, who's got brilliant stuff on the website all the time, which is really great to read. And he posted this on Twitter yesterday about the tries that have been scored in the games between Scotland and their opponents during the Six Nations in the first half. Scotland are 8-3 up in terms of tries, but in the second half, Scotland have only scored 3 and conceded it. And it just kind of, it shows the way they've dropped off a lot and not being able to get that performance together.
That's astonishing. Well, it's not astonishing. It's astonishing how much it matches what we've witnessed. In actual statistics. It's really concerning that they're starting games like a sort of world-class team that beyond what I think we've seen in Six Nations in recent years. The first half against Wales, I know Wales were very poor, but the accuracy and the level of skill and quality that we were seeing was amazing. I think everybody was just looking at each other going, is this Scotland? Am I really seeing this sort of thing? And then to have the complete opposite happen, it's just, I was talking about them going away from their plan. If you take the Italy game, it just made no sense at all. Like everything was working, and then suddenly somebody on the I don't know. Seeing as I don't know where this comes from. Whether it's Townsend's halftime talk, maybe he's not great at halftime talks. I don't know, but it interests me as to where it's coming from. Is it coming from Townsend? Is it coming from Finn? Is it coming from Rory Darge? Or is it a sort of group of players that are just kind of influencing each other? I don't know where the plan just suddenly starts collapsing, or whether it just starts in one area and just sort of has a domino effect throughout the squad. But one thing I was going to say was actually I don't know how you feel about the Rory Darge situation, but I've basically forgotten that he's a co-captain. But I did remember during the Italy match when I saw the look on his face after the Italian's final try. You might have not seen this Gav in the stadium, but he just looked completely panicked. And I was just thinking, this is the co-captain. Like we can't have this sort of thing. He's got to be a guy who is defiant and lifting the team. And it just didn't look like a confident guy. And he's obviously not experienced as a captain, but it's just that. Yeah, I'm interested to know where the collapse is coming from. But I do have some concerns that we've had obviously in a slightly inexperienced captain pair as captains, and whether that's contributed at all.
I think it goes back to that fragility. Talking about going away from the plan, I think it comes from that sort of psychological fragility that, for all that the Scotland camp have decided that isn't a problem, minus Grant Gilchrist, who spoke superbly through the week and was really honest about the fact that, they do keep falling away in games. It was something that they identified in the World Cup that was a problem. So I think that is part of it. Whether subconsciously we've all played in games at varying levels where you go 2 or 3 scores up and think, this is okay, we're managing this fine. You drop off, your level drops 10%, and all of a sudden the opposition are on top of you. But what worries me is that Scotland don't have the nous, or haven't had the nous so far, to get that back. They stopped Wales from turning that game on its head in Cardiff, but Scotland have never wrestled control off a team. And if they find themselves in a similar spot today, I think they're in big trouble. I agree with the point about Darge and Finn being kind of inexperienced as captains as well. I think also Rory Darge hasn't been in a lot of these situations before, so that I think is a big ask for a young guy who won't have experienced the kind of tide turning as it did in Cardiff, or the crowd in Rome last week. There was 40,000 there 2 years ago, and there was basically double that last weekend. So, it's a big ask. And actually, on that subject, he was asked a kind of tricky question in his pre-match press conference yesterday, and you could see he didn't know exactly the kind of shots to fire back. And he's taken on a lot of that burden, where somebody like Finn might have been able to shoulder a wee bit more of the responsibility. So, it is a concern that they are very inexperienced, but they've just got to get a grip of it today and make sure that whether it's one of them or both of them are doing, and they will lean on Grant Gilchrist a lot. I think he'll be a really important figure today because he's kind of been there and done it, and he'll have to make sure that they're 100% on it. And he's obviously spoken, there's a few pieces on the site from him about his own desire to make amends from the World Cup. But yeah, I think that'll be a big factor from all the players who were involved.
Just a quick one on that Rory Darr situation. Do you think there's maybe just a case of, Gregor having a bit of succession planning for the future with captaincy? I know you could have just had him as vice captain and part of the leadership group, but obviously Finn's a few years older. He's not going anywhere soon. But is it maybe a case of having Rory there as sort of like to learn a bit more about it, to sort of, and then when it comes his time to be captain on his own, he's got that experience behind him?
Do you want to hit that one, Gav?
Sorry. I was just going to say yes, basically. I think that is the rationale behind it. I think, the summer tour fixtures were announced yesterday. Do I expect Finn to be on a tour to Canada, America, Chile and Uruguay? Definitely not. I think he can put his slippers on and enjoy the summer. But I think Rory Darr will go, and I think he'll be captain on his own because he needs that experience of doing it by himself. And yeah, look, he's a guy who's been captain of the 20s and by all accounts made a pretty good job of that. So yeah, I expect him to be in that kind of around that leadership environment for the foreseeable. And I think there is a bit of succession planning in it, which isn't a bad idea. And I think Finn's a good foil for him, given his experience. So yeah, but the co-captaincy thing, I think, has added pressure on Rory that maybe after coming back, he had 6 weeks out before the championship started, and it's a lot to come back and also be captain.
Yeah. Well, just before we quickly move on to the other games, just to get a quick prediction that's probably not going to be fun for anyone, but Gav, what's your prediction on the game?
I would like to be optimistic. So I'll chalk a few points off the Ireland total that I was predicting last night. 31-15 to Ireland.
Yeah. Steph, do you agree with that?
Oh, we're going for an exact score, are we? I was going to go for a margin.
You can just go for a margin if you're fit.
Well, I'm thinking Ireland by 12. So I suppose I could say something like 30-18 to Ireland.
Right, and so we'll just have a quick look at the other two games. Obviously, England,
just
France.
Before we do that, sorry, Mark, I was just going to say my prediction also involves Duhan breaking Scotland's tie record, but in the most Scottish way possible. In a probably 2 consolation scores at the end.
Yeah.
So nobody really cares.
That wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, just kill the story. Well, like I say, England, France as well later on. It's probably the game that will have least impact on the entire championship. If Ireland get a result, then England can't win. How do you see that one go?
Really tough one to call, I think. I wouldn't have said that, at the start of the tournament, but we saw how England played against Ireland last week, and France have not been the France that we know. They convincingly beat Wales, but Wales are a team in transition at the moment. It's not really. I'm not sure how much you can take from that, to be honest. It was a very interesting game between Wales and France to begin with, and then France kind of ran away with it in the end. I really don't know how to call that one. It's my instinct is saying England, but because I think you go on what you saw the previous week, and that they've been essentially what I believe to be the best team in the world. So. And they did it in a very, clinical fashion. So I'm tempted to say England might take it, but it is in France. So I think it could go either way. It's a really, really 50-50.
Is that something you'd agree with, Gav?
It is actually, yeah. But I think it's interesting that we're now back to talking about which version of the France team turns up, which is something that they had completely eradicated for so long under Fabien Galtier. And it's just reared its head, this championship. They have been awful. They kind of sorted themselves out against Wales, but for a lot of the first half, they weren't great. Obviously missing Antoine Dupont, Roman Ntamak, Aldrich's been injured. Yeah, look, it'll be a close game. I think if England drag the French into a kind of slugfest, arm wrestle, let's play zero rugby, that'll be their best attempt at winning. Although England played some decent stuff against Ireland. Yeah, it's tough to call. I think probably home advantage for me just about edges it. Away wins are so hard in the Six Nations. Yeah. So I think France, but I think it'll be France within a score.
And the other game, battle for the wooden spoon, which, personally I think it would be very, very harsh on Italy to finish bottom, given they've had a couple of results in the tournament, whereas Wales have, lost all four. But yeah, Steph, I know that's something that annoys you a bit as well, the whole bonus point situation. So how do you see that one go?
Yeah, I do find it annoying because at the end of the day, Wales haven't, as you say, haven't won any games. Italy have won a game and drawn a game. And if you were to explain that to somebody that doesn't really watch rugby, that, Wales could win this game today and still not get the wooden spoon, not finish bottom of the table despite having worse results than Italy, then I don't really know how they would take that. It's one of those things that makes, I do understand the rationale behind bonus points, but I just think in a test match situation, it just makes the thing a bit of a farce. Yeah. At the end of the day, a team that has a win and a draw and a team that has a win, the team that has the win and a draw should finish above. End of story. It just doesn't make any sense. And we almost had a similar situation at the other end of the table this weekend. It's not quite as silly as it could have been, with Ireland having won it with, because of bonus points already. We're obviously not in that situation now. But I still think it would be more exciting without bonus points. End of that rant. I think that again, I think it could be a very close game between Wales and Italy. But I think that Wales will do it today. I think it's Cardiff. They have to win because they to potentially not get the wooden spoon, and also just to sort of save their championship, with their fans. And yeah, I think they might just edge it today, but obviously they will have to. They'll be wanting to avoid handing Italy a losing bonus point, because that could see Wales get the wooden spoon anyway. So yeah, I do think Wales will maybe edge it today by maybe about 10 points.
Gav, is that something you agree with as well?
Interesting. Wales by 10 points. I think it'll be closer than that.
It could be closer.
I do think that, again, home advantage is in Wales's favour. That's a big factor. Mm-hmm. Although Italy won there 2 years ago, but they won there 2 years ago because of a bit of magic by Ange Capuozzo. He's not playing. Yeah. So they've lost a bit of that attacking spark. Yeah, I think Wales will just about do it, but I think it could be, come right down to the wire, and I think it could be literally within 3 points.
Mm. Yeah, that's fair. I think we'll probably leave it there for the day. It's been a long Six Nations, I think, already. But yeah, just a reminder that you can sign up to scotlandrugbynews.com, and for 6 months of coverage, just costs just £1. Just go to the website, hit subscribe, and you'll be able to get it there. Yeah, Gav, Steph, thanks for joining us again. Everybody that's in Dublin, hope you enjoy your day, and we will speak to you at the start of next week.